This is also a time of change for my family. Catherine becomes Queen Consort. In recognition of her own loyal public service, I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely.
Queen Camilla believed the treasures inside Clarence House formed part of the life she had built beside the king. But in one devastating private meeting, that assumption collapsed. 3 senior solicitors placed a sealed inheritance confirmation before the royal couple and named Catherine, not Camilla, as the sole future custodian of the resident's most valuable private collection. Charles remained silent. Catherine had not yet entered the room, and Camilla's face revealed that she understood the decision could not be reversed. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Camilla entered the garden room expecting routine business. She carried notes about exhibitions and museum loans. Charles was already seated beside 3 solicitors from the custodial trust, the legal body responsible for protecting and transferring designated private treasures. The Queen Consort sensed tension, but still expected a routine inventory discussion. The lead solicitor opened a sealed inheritance confirmation, a binding legal statement naming who would receive the collection. He spoke plainly. Catherine, Princess of Wales, would inherit the complete private Clarence House collection: paintings, historic jewels, correspondence, ceremonial objects, rare furniture, and personal royal heirlooms. Camilla could not amend, delay, or redirect the transfer. Camilla gripped her chair. "Does this exclude me permanently?" she asked. The solicitor answered yes. She removed her glasses, placed them beside the file, and turned toward Charles. The king read the first page. He would not meet her eyes. That silence cut deeper than the ruling, because she understood he had known confirmation was coming, even if the exact terms were hidden. Then came the first shock. Catherine had not been named only because she might become queen. She had been identified personally, meaning the inheritance would survive changes to titles, household arrangements, or the timing of William's accession. The future king could face delay or constitutional uncertainty, yet the collection would still pass directly to her. Camilla hardened when a second clause appeared. Her children, grandchildren, personal household, and future representatives were barred from claiming or contesting any listed object. The wording was so precise that it felt less like protection and more like anticipation. Someone had expected resistance. Someone had prepared for her family without naming them openly. Camilla leaned forward and demanded to know who had created the arrangement. The lead solicitor paused, glanced at Charles, and traced the answer to a family meeting held earlier, which Catherine had never been told about. Camilla had just lost the collection, but the deeper wound was still waiting. Someone within the royal family had planned this outcome long before she understood there was a battle to fight. The legal decision may have required only a few pages, but its emotional weight had been building for years. To Camilla, Clarence House represented acceptance after decades of public hostility. To Catherine, its collection represented a royal history she had approached cautiously, never expecting to possess it. Now one woman was being told to surrender the symbols of her survival, while the other was being handed a legacy capable of changing her place inside the monarchy forever. Camilla had never viewed Clarence House as merely another royal residence. It was the place where Charles had slowly rebuilt a public life beside her. After years in which every appearance carried judgment, she had approved room arrangements, chosen which objects would be displayed, and hosted private gatherings meant to show that she finally belonged. The collection became more than decoration. It became proof that the long battle for acceptance had not been fought for nothing. Catherine represented something very different. She had become the monarchy's trusted bridge between inherited tradition and an uncertain future. Her careful handling of historic jewels, family commemorations, and ceremonial duties had convinced senior royals that she would protect sensitive objects without using them to strengthen her own position. Yet that trust now placed her inside a conflict she had never asked to inherit. Camilla waited until the solicitors had left before walking into the morning room alone. She stopped beside a cabinet holding miniature portraits and told Charles that the ruling made her feel like a temporary occupant in the home she had believed finally accepted her. The king followed, but he struggled to answer. His silence no longer felt neutral. It felt like surrender. William informed Catherine in private. She opened the inventory, read only a few pages, then closed the folder. The princess did not celebrate. She said she could not accept the collection, as though another woman's humiliation were simply an administrative detail. William understood her discomfort, but he also warned that refusing might create consequences neither of them yet understood. Charles finally admitted the danger. Challenging the arrangement could trigger a full legal dispute and expose private instructions written by deceased members of the family. He was trapped between protecting Camilla emotionally and protecting the crown from a public inheritance battle that could reopen wounds buried for years. Camilla then noticed a distinctive witness notation on the confirmation page. She believed it pointed toward Princess Anne. Her suspicion hardened when Charles refused to say whether his sister had reviewed the sealed terms before the meeting. That refusal told her more than a denial ever could. Catherine requested a private meeting with the solicitors before accepting anything. She wanted to know why she had been chosen, who had excluded Camilla, and whether hidden obligations were attached to the inheritance. Catherine believed the truth would be found in the legal papers, but the real explanation began with a single royal confrontation that had taken place behind locked doors years before. Every royal rupture has a moment that later appears inevitable. A sentence spoken too sharply, a hand withdrawn, a door closed before forgiveness can enter. For the Clarence House collection, that moment came during a private memorial planning meeting years earlier. Camilla requested permanent authority over several deeply personal royal objects. Princess Anne refused. Charles tried to calm them. But before the evening ended, a decision was made in another room, and Catherine's name was placed at the center of a succession plan she knew nothing about. The dispute had always been waiting beneath the surface. Some objects inside Clarence House belonged to the crown, while others were controlled through private family settlements, custodial agreements, and named inheritance provisions. These were different legal arrangements governing who could protect, use, or eventually receive an object. Because the collection had no single ownership structure, uncertainty surrounded what would happen when Charles and Camilla no longer lived there. Anne had warned about that danger repeatedly. She believed emotionally important heirlooms should pass through the direct line of royal duty, not according to the wishes of a spouse or private household. The princess did not question whether Camilla belonged beside Charles. She questioned whether temporary access should ever become permanent control over the family's memory. Camilla forced the issue during a closed memorial planning meeting. She asked for several heirlooms linked to earlier royal women to be placed permanently under her household authority. Anne refused immediately. No current consort, she argued, should be allowed to redirect objects intended for future generations. Camilla heard something colder beneath those words. She accused Anne of treating her as though she would never truly belong. The princess did not soften. Belonging to the family, she replied, did not create ownership over its history. Charles pushed his chair backward and ordered both women to stop, but the damage had already been done. Neither withdrew the accusation. Neither offered forgiveness. Charles made his choice later that night. Still Prince of Wales, he met Anne and a family solicitor, without Camilla present. A solicitor is a lawyer who prepares legal instructions and advises clients before disputes reach court. Exhausted by the confrontation and fearful of rival household claims, he agreed that one named successor should eventually protect the collection. Anne proposed Catherine. She pointed to her connection with the direct line through William, her restraint with historic jewels, and her refusal to use royal objects as personal decoration. Charles signed an authorization allowing the trust to evaluate the princess as a future custodian. Yet that signature was only the beginning. Someone later converted the cautious safeguard into an irrevocable inheritance instruction, a command that could not be withdrawn once legally confirmed. Charles had not strengthened it. Anne knew who had. And the final witness was now preparing to enter the present-day conflict. The old confrontation explained why Catherine had been considered, but Camilla still wanted to know who had turned a cautious safeguard into a judgment she could never overturn. Camilla did not summon Catherine to shout, threaten, or plead. She summoned her because silence had become unbearable. With no aides, secretaries, or solicitors present, the two women sat opposite each other inside Clarence House, surrounded by objects that now seemed to belong to the future rather than the present. Catherine arrived determined to show compassion. Camilla arrived determined to hear the truth. Within minutes, courtesy gave way to accusation, and one question exposed the fear neither woman had dared to name. Camilla had arranged the meeting herself. She asked Catherine to come without William, chose the library, closed the doors, and ordered the staff not to interrupt. A silver tea service remained untouched between them. The queen consort wanted no witnesses and no careful palace language. She wanted an answer from the woman whose name now stood above hers in the inheritance papers. Catherine spoke first. She said she had never requested the collection and had not known she was named until William informed her. The princess offered to support a respectful transition and insisted that every item legally belonging to Camilla should remain hers. She did not speak defensively. She spoke carefully, because she understood that compassion could sound like victory when offered by the person who had gained everything. Camilla refused to be comforted. She asked whether Catherine understood what it felt like to watch the monarchy celebrate her as the future, while quietly stripping dignity from the woman living in the present. Her voice trembled, but she held the princess's gaze. To her, this was no longer about furniture, jewels, or paintings. It was about whether decades of sacrifice had earned her permanence or only temporary permission. Catherine absorbed the accusation, then drew a line. She acknowledged Camilla's pain, but rejected the claim that she had engineered the decision. Refusing the inheritance, she said, would not restore trust. It would only leave the collection exposed to another fight, perhaps one more public and far more destructive. Camilla then revealed the warning that had haunted her. During their earlier confrontation, Anne had told her the collection would one day be placed in safer hands. Until the solicitors arrived, she had never understood that Catherine was the person her sister-in-law meant. The question came without disguise. Camilla asked her to renounce the inheritance voluntarily. Catherine paused. She folded her hands and answered that she could not abandon a responsibility created to protect royal history, especially now that the exclusion clause proved serious conflict had been expected. Yet she refused to let the dispute remain between them. Before leaving, Catherine promised she would confront Anne directly and demand the full truth. Catherine left Clarence House, carrying no object at all, but she carried something more dangerous, the determination to challenge the woman who had quietly shaped the entire inheritance. Princess Anne did not apologize when Catherine placed the inheritance file before her. She did not deny her role, soften the exclusion, or blame the solicitors. Instead, she opened a private cabinet and removed the final witness statement, the document that explained why Charles could not reverse the transfer and why Camilla's appeal had already failed before it began. Catherine expected a legal technicality. What she received was a message from the past, written to prevent precisely the conflict now unfolding. Catherine arrived with one question burning beneath every other concern. Had Anne deliberately used her as a barrier against Camilla? The princess placed the solicitor's confirmation on the table and waited. Anne served as a surviving family witness and protective advisor to the private custodial trust, meaning she could verify how the original instructions had been created without personally benefiting from them. Her signature did not give her ownership. It gave the arrangement authority. Anne answered without hesitation. Catherine had been selected as a custodian, not a weapon. Catherine did not accept the distinction easily. She said her name had been used without permission in a conflict shaped by grief, marriage, rank, and belonging. The princess feared that accepting the collection would make her appear eager to replace Camilla before the current reign had even ended. She had spent years avoiding any suggestion that she was reaching for status. Now, a sealed instruction had placed that accusation directly in her path. Anne remained firm. Royal duty, she said, rarely waited for consent. It arrived when the family needed someone strong enough to carry it. Refusing responsibility because it caused discomfort would allow personal tension to defeat long-term preservation. The princess did not dismiss Catherine's fear, but she would not let fear become an excuse. Then Anne revealed the truth. Queen Elizabeth had reviewed the proposed arrangement after learning about the confrontation during the memorial planning meeting. The late monarch examined the legal uncertainty, strengthened the instruction, named Catherine personally, and ordered that no serving consort could redirect the collection. A serving consort is the spouse of a reigning monarch, powerful in public life but without an automatic personal claim over historic family property. Elizabeth had not framed Camilla's exclusion as punishment. She believed objects tied to several royal generations must pass into a future sovereign household, not become part of any consort's private family inheritance. Catherine was chosen because she would stand beside William and help prepare George's generation for the duty ahead. Anne then offered one narrow choice. Catherine could decline active control during Camilla's lifetime while remaining the legal inheritor. Compassion might require distance. Duty might require immediate involvement. The late Queen's instructions settled the question of ownership. But Catherine's next decision would determine whether the inheritance became an orderly transition or a public symbol of Camilla's defeat. The first consequence did not arrive with trumpets, announcements, or ceremonial language. It arrived as a revised inventory schedule. Camilla discovered that future loans, restorations, valuations, and private exhibitions would now require Catherine's written approval. A household role she had exercised confidently was disappearing line by line. Then an official placed a new authorization form on her desk, and the Queen understood that the inheritance was no longer a distant arrangement. It had already begun changing her daily life. The trust activated interim protective measures almost immediately. These were temporary rules designed to preserve the collection before the final transfer took place. Camilla could continue living at Clarence House and using the objects already displayed there, but she could no longer approve removals, long-term loans, restorations, or changes to how inherited items were classified. Every decision now carried another name. Staff felt the shift before anyone spoke openly about it. Curators and household officials were instructed to copy Catherine's office into every discussion involving the collection. Employees who had served Camilla for years suddenly found themselves answering to both the current queen and the future custodian. Loyalty had not changed, but authority had divided, and that division made every ordinary request feel dangerous. Camilla faced the new reality when a curator presented an exhibition form requiring her signature beneath Catherine's approval. She read the younger woman's name once, then again. The Queen placed the pen down and said she would not sign while anyone was watching. The curator withdrew, but the humiliation remained behind. Charles found her alone after the staff had gone. Camilla told him that no title could protect a person from feeling displaced inside her own rooms. The king reached for her hand. She pulled it back, before finally allowing his fingers to touch hers. Even that small hesitation revealed how deeply his earlier silence had wounded her. Camilla's private legal advisor later identified one possible challenge. He argued that Catherine's personal naming might conflict with household arrangements created after the original instruction. The claim offered no guarantee of victory, but it could delay the transition and force every hidden disagreement into public view. Charles refused immediately. He would not permit a courtroom battle involving Elizabeth's instructions, Anne's testimony, and Catherine's future place beside William. The monarch's decision was final. Preserving the institution mattered more than reversing his wife's humiliation, and Camilla understood that truth with painful clarity. Yet she did not authorize the challenge. Instead, she asked to see Catherine again without anger, legal papers, or demands. The first meeting had been shaped by accusation. The second would be shaped by something far more difficult, the possibility that both women had been trapped by decisions made around them. There were no lawyers in the room when Camilla and Catherine met again. No king, no future king, no Princess Anne, and no sealed testimony from the past. For the first time since the decision, they spoke not as competing royal figures, but as two women carrying different forms of public judgment. Camilla admitted what she truly feared. Catherine revealed what she was prepared to sacrifice. and in the silence after their final exchange, the inheritance stopped being a weapon and became a responsibility they could define together. Catherine returned to Clarence House alone. Camilla dismissed the waiting staff and led her into a smaller sitting room filled with family photographs rather than historic display pieces. The change mattered. Neither woman could hide behind ceremony there. The queen consort had chosen a place shaped by private memory, because private memory was what she believed the inheritance threatened most. Camilla spoke before caution could return. She would not challenge Elizabeth's instruction or Anne's testimony. A legal contest, she admitted, would wound Charles, force William against his father, and turn generations of family pain into evidence in a public trial. The collection might be delayed, but the monarchy would pay the price. Then Camilla named the fear beneath her anger. Losing valuable objects was not the deepest wound. She feared history would describe her as a woman merely tolerated, until Catherine arrived to restore dignity to the crown. The Queen's voice remained controlled, but the confession carried decades of judgment. She had fought to build a life beside Charles, and now she feared that life would be reduced to an awkward chapter before the future began. Catherine did not offer empty comfort. She said inheritance could not erase the marriage Camilla had built, or the duties she had carried beside the king. The princess could not control how history judged either of them, but she could refuse to treat the collection as proof of personal victory. Catherine then proposed shared stewardship, a temporary arrangement in which both women would guide major decisions while legal ownership remained unchanged. No visible transfer would occur while Camilla lived at Clarence House. Personal objects would be separated respectfully, and nothing would be removed simply to display the younger woman's authority. Camilla made one request. A small group of objects connected only to her marriage and private family life should remain available to her permanently. Catherine agreed to support that request, provided the solicitors confirmed none belonged to the protected historic core. Camilla retrieved the unsigned authorization form. She signed beneath Catherine's approval, then passed the pen across the table. The gesture accepted the future without erasing the present. Their private agreement ended the personal battle, but the world outside Clarence House was about to transform that quiet compromise into the loudest royal story of the year. By sunrise, the private inheritance had become a national drama. Commentators spoke of succession, rivalry, revenge, and the unstoppable rise of Catherine. Yet one public image disrupted the easiest narrative. As crowds gathered beyond the gates of Clarence House, Camilla and Catherine appeared together for a scheduled reception. Neither woman mentioned the collection, but a brief gesture on the front steps conveyed what palace statements could not, and forced the public to reconsider who had truly won and who had truly lost. The palace moved quickly to contain the speculation. A formal statement confirmed that Catherine had been designated the future custodian and inheritor of the protected Clarence House collection. A custodian is the person legally trusted to preserve important objects for those who come after. The announcement spoke of continuity, conservation, and duty across generations. It avoided every word the public wanted to hear: conflict, exclusion, defeat. Broadcasters filled the silence themselves. Some described the arrangement as proof that Catherine's authority was already expanding before William reached the throne. Others argued that the decision marked a quiet transfer of influence from Camilla's household toward the future royal court. Every discussion reduced a painful family settlement to a contest between two women. Camilla read the harshest version over breakfast. A front page showed her beside Catherine beneath the headline, "The House chooses its future queen." She studied it without speaking, then folded the newspaper inward until the photograph disappeared. When Charles entered, the Queen had already placed it aside. The King noticed the movement, but did not ask what she had hidden. Catherine reacted with equal anger, though for a different reason. She instructed her office never to describe the inheritance as a victory. The princess rejected commentary claiming that one woman had to be humiliated for another to appear legitimate. She understood how quickly public praise could become a weapon, and she refused to hold it against Camilla. Hundreds gathered near Clarence House before a scheduled charity reception. Camilla emerged with Catherine and paused at the steps. Instead of allowing the younger woman to follow, The Queen deliberately gestured for her to walk beside her. Catherine responded by briefly touching Camilla's arm before they entered the waiting car. The exchange lasted seconds, yet it challenged hours of hostile analysis. Then the palace released another detail. Solicitors confirmed that Catherine had approved lifelong access for Camilla to objects connected directly to her marriage and personal service. Her first formal act had protected, not removed. Charles soon called William, Catherine, Camilla, and Anne together to sign the final stewardship protocol, the binding agreement governing how the collection would be managed. The public had witnessed reconciliation in a single gesture. Now the royal family had to decide whether that gesture represented genuine peace or merely disciplined performance. The final meeting did not restore what Camilla had lost, nor did it diminish what Catherine had inherited. Instead, it forced the royal family to confront a truth larger than either woman. The monarchy survives only when personal possession gives way to stewardship. Around one table, Charles acknowledged his silence, Anne defended the past, William protected the future, Catherine accepted the burden, and Camilla chose dignity over resistance. The collection would pass forward, but it would no longer pass as evidence of a family at war. The solicitors returned with a final stewardship protocol, a binding agreement explaining who could protect, use, and eventually transfer the collection. Catherine remained the irrevocable inheritor, meaning the legal destination could no longer be changed. Camilla, however, would retain dignified access and an active voice while she continued living at Clarence House. The compromise did not reverse the ruling, but it prevented the transition from becoming an act of erasure. Catherine received final authority over preservation, restoration, loans, and future transfer. Camilla could advise on displays and continue using designated personal objects, but she could not redirect historic pieces to her children, descendants, or private estate. The line between memory and ownership had finally been drawn. Charles broke the silence first. He admitted that his refusal to speak during the original meeting had made Camilla feel abandoned. The king explained that he feared an immediate objection would expose Elizabeth's instruction, Anne's testimony, and the family's private divisions. Yet caution, he confessed, did not excuse emotional absence. Camilla listened without interrupting, and for once, he did not hide behind duty. Camilla then faced the room. She said she had once believed losing control meant losing her place within the family. The queen consort now understood that belonging could not be secured by ownership, just as Catherine's future role could not erase the life she had built beside Charles. Anne answered with equal restraint. The princess said the arrangement had never been designed to crown a winner. It existed because royal memory must remain connected to service, succession, and public responsibility, not personal resentment. Catherine signed the protocol and promised that no object would ever be used to diminish Camilla's years beside the monarch. The future queen accepted authority without triumph. Camilla signed immediately afterward, ending every possibility of a legal challenge. Camilla closed the original solicitor's file and handed it directly to Catherine. She accepted it with both hands. Charles watched them leave together, while Anne remained behind and removed the unused challenge papers. The collection passed to Catherine, the challenge ended, and Clarence House ceased to represent a struggle between two queens. It became proof that royal legacy survives only when the present finally agrees to release the future. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.